What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for August 7th, 2023. For the 3.20 patch, we have very little on it, but at least they gave us an update. The monthly report hints at a number of small updates that could improve the experience, and the video content is, well, interesting. All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all of the official Star Citizen news each week, put it into one video, and share some of my opinions about it. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time every day but Monday, so I can get this video out to you guys. Now, I just got off of a cruise ship. I was celebrating my anniversary with my wife, so yeah. Make sure you leave a like on this one because we jumped right into work the moment I got off the ship. So thank you very much for all the support over this time, but this one might need a little bit of extra. But we got a little bit to talk about, so let's jump into what's going on with 320. So the only news we really have around 320 was from this week in Star Citizen, and really only the first sentence is what matters here. They are pushing to get the rest of 320 into Evocati testers' hands. They have not delivered a full build to the Evocati test flight. That's basically what that sounds like to me. I really don't think this is a huge issue personally. I would just like them to work on it until it's ready to be, for them to gather feedback on it, right? It's not that big of a deal if it takes another week or two, because, well, there's nothing really too monumental in 320 anyway, so whatever is there you want in a good state so you can give some feedback on it, right? And of course, we all want to move forward, but in general, I think that that's good. You want the hull C in a place where you can give feedback on it. You want the mission stuff in a place where you can give feedback on it. You don't want it coming in extremely hot and extraordinarily buggy, and the only feedback you can give is it's buggy, right? Like, that's just never a good PTU experience. That's never a good Evo experience. So just personally would rather them take their time and get it in instead of rushing, where it kind of feels like they're rushing right now. Just saying. Postmortem is still nowhere to be found. I don't know if it's been 3 or 4 weeks since they've mentioned it, and for me, I'm ready for it when it's ready. It's not that big of a deal. But what I'm tired of is never being able to trust a single communication that comes out of this company. It's just getting insane, right? You would think they would tell you about the postmortem so you would see it next week, or you would see it the week after at the latest, but that's just not the case. And in general, what's probably happening here is that they're massaging this thing so anything they do say doesn't sound as bad as it actually is, or whatever, right? So again, you just can't trust any communication coming out of this company, and that just really, really just sucks. So moving on, we had a monthly report, and there is a bunch of good things to touch on here. And the first thing we'll go with is with animation. This is kind of minor, it's basic stuff, but they're improving on little reloads and takedowns and idles, which I think is actually the coolest thing. Is, I don't know about you guys, but I think like players and NPCs just standing around doing nothing really doesn't add life to the game, and improving idle animations is always a good thing. And it sounds like those repetitive voice lines we've been hearing from NPCs are going to get a bit of an update as well. They're working on the facial animations for those NPCs to show up in your comm section of your MFDs, I would imagine. And then ship art in the UK, alert, a cap ship is in production. The RSI Polaris has started in its white box pass, but stay calm, folks. Big ships have been worked on before. So yes, this is a very big deal and a big ship that a lot of people spent money on, including myself, way back in 2016. But let's get it further along before we get super excited. An unannounced ship is in LOD 0 pass, which is like the final pass, basically. So it's very far along. I'm assuming it's a Sitcon ship, but maybe it's coming sooner. And we learned the A1 Spirit is in final art and will be ready for the 3.20 patch. The C1 is next. How do you feel about that? There's a lot of backlog ships out there, and the, A1, C1, and maybe the E1 are going to be worked on here. Just let me know down in the comments how you guys feel about that. And then 2 new random variants are in the works, but we don't think they're entirely random. We assume that one of them is the Fury LX. And then for the North American chip art team, the Tumbril Storm is at its end, so we might see it in the first Tank Royale match, where I think a lot of us didn't expect that to be the case. A vehicle and 2 more variants are being worked on and nearly done. So again, probably some IAE stuff or CitizenCon. And then the Santokai is progressing. The issue that failed on ISC a while back seems to have passed now, and the Origin X1 has started its gray box. If you haven't heard of it, it's a hover bike from Origin, nothing crazy there. For character features, the team is experimenting with skill progression. They spoke about it at CitizenCon last year. A very similar system to Tarkov, where if you do basic things in the game, you will improve at doing those basic things. So picking up heavier objects is an example that was given there, but we don't really have a true weight system yet, so that's kind of interesting one. They're working on slides as well. I imagine just very much, Squadron 42 stuff coming over to the PU. Gameplay features, vehicle tractor beams are heavily being worked on. I don't see them on the 320 roadmap though, so should we be super interested in this? Probably not. More resource network stuff, and we obviously saw the munching mechanic on ISC, so that's something that they've been working on. I can't wait to see mining get its improvements, but at the very least, it just seems like the instability bug might be resolved. We did think this was resolved in a previous patch in 3.19, I believe, so fingers crossed there. Looking forward to these improvements, but don't exactly know what they are yet. Maybe we'll have an ISC or something like that soon. Mission features. They did a ton of testing on ship trespass, which we all know is an important feature, and that they dialed back on because there was too much. Retrieve consignment has passed its final review, and as mentioned before, I think this is a big deal, but we really need a good dynamic event, and Blockade Runner seems like it could be great. Just the higher-ups liked their prototype and approved for the team to work on it further. Fingers crossed there, because I think the same old dynamic events really are getting stale, big time. Cargo missions are planned with reputation in mind. It sounds not just like a little bit of bonus money, but some pretty cool stuff. Steal and recover cargo missions are also looking good, and code work has begun on reputation, and that will give discounts on items, refueling, and repair. Do you really need like a reduction of cost on a 400 credit bill? I don't know. Some ships do eat up a lot of credits for fuel, but nothing of any serious note. But I would love to see a rebalance to the economy and how all these things work with this reputation coming into the game at some point. But again, it should make being a criminal more difficult now. So we did see 3.18 and part of 3.19 be more of the criminal patch or the piracy patch, as we've heard. So it made being a pirate easier and more fun, and it made being a trader a little bit more difficult, right? This should add that difficulty level to being a pirate, I hope, and it should balance that out. But let me know if you guys think this will work. Right now, the AI aren't really going to be the best balancing tactics, right? So if Crusader Security just starts shooting at people more often, sure, it'll be annoying, but it's not really the issue that that pirates are really worried about, I would imagine. So for me, I think restrictions in landing zones, restrictions at shops, things like that are really what I would like to see. And then for locations, the EU team is doing what they've been doing for what seems like years now, and that's working on Pyro. I imagine this is their main focus of a singular presentation at CitizenCon, or it could be the entire keynote yet again. I think a lot of us are expecting the keynote to be like maybe Squadron 42 related, but I imagine it's just going to be Pyro again. Let me know down in the comments below what you think you will see at CitizenCon. What are the big ticket things? But I imagine one of those big ticket things has to be Pyro, because so many of the elements of this monthly report are focused on Pyro. The Montreal team is in a similar boat, but they're working on derelict settlements and underground facilities that we saw at last year's CitizenCon and in ISC this past year. Once they're done, though, they're back on building interiors, which we saw in the Hurston update, I think, and assume we'll see an update on those at CitizenCon as well. The narrative team, again, We don't usually touch on narrative, but we've been doing it a lot more specifically for this reason, is I expected to see more content related around mission givers in recent weeks or months, and because they had a dedicated person that was working on them, they're hiring more people on that. So it seems like that team is not complete, and maybe they needed a little bit more. And they also talked about NPCs feeling more alive, but I personally don't see that being a thing or even worth prioritizing at this moment, because the players just won't see it. And again, this is probably another Squadron 42 item that they put in the PU monthly report to pad the actual work that's being done. And then for UI, the core tech team basically made some significant improvements to building blocks from a performance standpoint, and they're working on the internal map, which was shown again at CitizenCon last year and is clearly a focus for the event this year, as nothing is planned for 320, right? So I imagine that this is something that they're working on to show at CitizenCon, which is most of what we saw in this week's monthly report. Sure, there's a lot of minor things that are touching on gameplay and I guess the player experience, right? Which was an initiative last year. But in general, if you really look deep down at the monthly report, it looks like a lot of work that is planned to be shown at CitizenCon, and fingers crossed that that work is meant to be shown in a 3.21 or a 3.22 or something, and not just CitizenCon, which is what the last, 4 or 5 CitizenCons have been. Underground facilities, things like that. It's disappointing. So monthly reports used to be a really good go-to to see what the team is working on something you were going to get to see soon, or actually something you were going to get to interact with soon, not just see at a CitizenCon. So fingers crossed there, but don't hold your breath on those things. And then for video updates, we had an Inside Star Citizen titled Hey Now It's Rastar, and the main takeaway is basically the introduction to what Rastar is and where they are now with it.
Currently in the Stanton system, there are 70 underground facilities, or UGFs as we call them. And when these were built a couple of years ago, we had the kits to build a wide variety of these assets. However, due to technical limitations, we weren't able to realize their full potential. At that time, we had 70 locations, but we only had 2 security UGFs and 2 drug UGFs. This isn't a case of we haven't had enough assets or enough time to do the art. Up until this point, we have all the things that we need to do the job. The Rastar tool has really just allowed us to take this to the next level. We are now able to go back and to revisit these 70 locations to create a wide amount of variety so that each location doesn't look like a copy-paste version of the other. This has allowed us to really go back, spend some time with these locations and help them realize their full potential.
Personally, I think bunkers realizing their full potential is going to take a lot more than just some art, but this is a great place to start. And yeah, they're just remaking these UGFs with a new tool is essentially what's happening for the time being. And then they went through a demo just placing the location we've seen like 10,000 times. Most of it was just placing useless art pieces. A lot of people were not happy about this episode, and that's understandable. And here's why I'm not happy.
The existing UGFs, limited to only 4 variations until now, are finally realizing their customization potential in the upcoming Alpha 320.
And they showed exactly none of this, right? Barely any interiors were shown, and the ones we did see were ones we've already seen. Unless, oh my god, sorry, I just realized this. Unless they meant the exterior placement of those uninteractable things. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if you took the entire episode as not just improving the exterior, but also improving the interior, and maybe they just weren't ready to show it. But I just had a moment where, did they mean those stupid things that they place on the outside of the locations to make them feel more alive? I certainly hope not. They seemed super proud and super hopeful about these locations. So maybe let's play a little bit on that hopefulness that we'll see more things at CitizenCon or something like that, like a refinery maybe, or something that's more useful than a bunch of large barrels that don't do anything but set dress the location. And then for Star Citizen Live, it was titled First Aid Made, which was exactly what they did. They made a first aid kit And, you know, it's just another game dev episode that is the result of, as they say, the Q3 drought. But in reality, what we've been seeing is a lot of these episodes that are not part of the Q3 drought. It's been these game dev episodes all year, basically. I went through on my live stream recently and counted the number of non-Star Citizen episodes versus like game dev episodes versus actual episodes of both Inside Star Citizen and Star Citizen Live, whether they were, you know, marketing episodes or you know, the really dive down into Star Citizen content episodes, and it was less than half, I think, could be considered like actually have been worked on. I can't remember. I think it was a little, maybe a bit more than half. But it wasn't a good look. I think there was a total of 50 episodes the entire year. Whatever the average was, it was slightly less than one. It was slightly over one episode a week when there should be 2 episodes scheduled a week. So we've had a weird year for Star Citizen content, and I'm not going to sit here and harp on and say it's Jared's fault or anything like that. I think it's a lot of things, in particular, the game is and 318 and all that stuff. So it's been a rough ride. Let me know how you felt about this week's content, but it was not an enjoyable one for me. And I think we got more out of the Rastar episode in 2021 on CitizenCon than we did this year. And then we have a very small other updates section, starting out with the sneak peek as we always do. And some people think this is a land claim beacon. That could be a very realistic thought process here, but if you tie into conversations that Xylo had at the Asia Bar Citizens, you know, mentioning if you like the Pioneer, you'll like CitizenCon. Maybe this is something touching a little update going on at CitizenCon this year. But again, it's a sneak peek, and if anybody's been following the sneak peeks lately, they've been baiting Pyro for years, and have basically the sneak peeks have zero weight in anything that's going to happen anytime soon, and are just another filler thing that they've been doing lately. Very often do we see something not worth checking or not worth following up on, and very rarely do we see something that is coming really soon. And then we had a subscriber promotion that is monthly flair, and that monthly flair is jackets. Personally, not my preference is the clothing in the game, as most of the time I'm wearing armor, right? One day I think clothing will be valuable and worth using, but for now, not really that important, so it's hard to get excited about these. But the first one, a $10 subscriber flair, is the Origin jacket. The $20 subscriber flair is the Mist jacket, and the purchasable one on the store is a Murray Cup jacket, which is pretty cool. Maybe this has something to do with the fact that they are really focusing on racing, and maybe the Murray Cup is something that we'll see soon. I don't know, but that'll do it for this week. So as always, guys, thank you for watching, and yeah, it's been rough making these videos lately because there's not a whole lot to go off of, but in general, I thought the monthly report was pretty juicy, and maybe a 320 kind of things are in there, and maybe 320 won't be so bad with some additional little updates with missions and stuff like that. I think 318 and 319 definitely have some like meat on the bones that you can really dive into, and it's just been some I guess player experience updates that we can use to improve on them. And yeah, besides that, you know, we'll see what happens this week on Inside Star Citizen and Star Citizen Live. But in general, I'm just, you know, we're all kind of waiting for CitizenCon. It's really not that far away, a few months, and hopefully 320 can hold us over until then. And yeah, again, really important, guys, to leave a like and comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode, and hit subscribe if you guys have been enjoying Weeks in Review and aren't yet subscribed. But thank you so much for watching. This is another terrible outro, so comment down below and all that stuff, and we'll see you guys next week.